Well, I know what we begin with. We begin with a word of prayer from Gary. So I'll give you the word, and Gary, if you lead us in prayer.
Shall we pray? Our gracious God, Heavenly Father, we come to you, Lord, this evening now. We thank you for the opportunity of living in this great and free land. We thank you, Lord, that we can meet together as a board. We pray that you may give us discernment and give us wisdom and knowledge on how to do what's right for the township, and may you do it also to thy glory in all that we do and say. We bring before you all our employees, our firefighters, our police, all our support staff that's in the offices, those that lead the township in different ways. We're thankful for each one of them. We ask you to give each one everything they stand in need of. May you give them safety on the job site as parts of their jobs are dangerous. Give them all to stand either too. Bless us now, Lord, the rest of this day. Bless our nation, O Lord. Bless our state, our county. And even though we play a small part in the nation as a township, we ask for blessings upon our township, its residences, and all those, O Lord, that are involved. Keep us from sin now, Lord. Forgive any sins, those that we're aware of and those that we are not. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thanks, Gary. Put all hands for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. May we see this? Again, welcome aboard. Feels like it's been a few weeks since I saw you last. And talking to a particular person. So I know you were introduced last meeting and sworn in, but good to have you.
Thank you. Good to be here.
So, Ryan, you want to recognize the roll tonight?
All right, present.
That's good. Item number 5, approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
Move.
Support.
Okay, it's been moved and supported. I'd like to make one small amendment, and maybe there are others that wish to as well, but I noticed, or it was brought to my attention, that Halloween falls on a Sunday this year, and that hasn't happened for a number of years, but the last time it happened, we got a lot of people wondering how's this going to work, and what is the township going to recognize. Obviously, people can do what they want, but I'd like to add to the agenda just a discussion and a designation of when we will publish on our website the official recognized evening for trick-or-treating, because people, they look for that. So, there's a motion to amend. The board. Moved and supported. Any comment on that?
Are you thinking like agenda item 11A?
Perfect.
Okay.
Yep. 11A.
I just need somewhere to put it, but I'm fine with that.
Yep. Okay. And so, all in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
All right, and then on the motion to approve the agenda as amended, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. So we have our agenda set for this evening. Item number 6, communication letters and reports received for information. As I'm sure you saw, Kirsten, we tend to get similar reports, a lot of the minutes from the various committees and planning commission, zoning board of appeals, expenditures, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot to go through there, and that'll be a common thing you'll see month to month, or I should say meeting to meeting. All right, so item number 7, public comment for action items remaining on the agenda. We've got just a few from the public tonight, but you're welcome, besides the key. The first opportunity to speak tonight would be to items remaining on our agenda this evening. We're talking about our master plan. We're talking about a preliminary approval of the budget for next year, among other things, a crossing guard and some other issues. Anyone here to speak to any of those issues tonight? Yes. Please step forward, just state your name and your street address, and then you've got 3 minutes to address the board.
I'm Rachel Brown, and I live at 8534 Beretta Court in Denison, North Georgetown. And I also have the privilege of being the principal of Bergley Elementary in Denison. And so I had a chance to come and talk to the service committee about the crossing guard. And just wanted to thank you for listening to that and for pushing it forward to the board. And to let you know that I'm here to answer any other questions when it comes up, or to be able to talk through anything that might be helpful. I've only been at Bergley for last month. Before that, I was at Pinewood Elementary, but during that time, we've been working really hard to make sure that kids are safe, especially coming to and from school. So it's been a big focus area for us. Dr. Graham, the superintendent, has been working hard on it as well, and we're doing everything we can on our end, and we're still finding that there's some safety concerns, and so that's why we came here. So I'm hopeful that I'll be able to help answer any questions or give any clarification when you're talking about the crossing guards.
And ma'am, you've got a couple of minutes left here even now of your time currently. Can you anticipate maybe some of the things that you'd want to know if you were evaluating this particular request? Just to anticipate the questions or concerns people might have.
Sure. So I think part of the question is just how will it be different if we have a crossing guard? So right now, where that Bergley is headed, 12th goes right by it, and then the other corner is Port Sheldon. And we do have one crossing guard that's doing an amazing job, and that crossing guard is crossing at both on the corner of 12th and Port Sheldon, which is a big job for one person. And what we find is our loop fills up with cars. Our parents have been doing a really nice job of coming in and filling up in our loop, but then it backs up traffic on 12th, and then the cars have no place to go. So then what cars are doing is they're going across 12th. There's a neighborhood right there with another loop in the neighborhood, and they're parking, and it's causing kids and parents to cross 12th right there. While the crossing guard at Port Sheldon and 12th is busy crossing at Port Sheldon. So that is something that we just have not been able to problem solve due to safety constraints for the traffic. And that has been the biggest concern. We're all aware there was an accident last spring, and that was kids crossing down 12 further. So they did walk down 12, kind of look to see if their traffic had been stopped on one side, but it wasn't on the other. And then just popped out, and obviously it was a tragic accident that we are trying our best to never have happen again. And we're hopeful that if we have another crossing guard there, we can direct everybody to cross safely at the guards and not have people just shooting across, so that we can keep our kids safe and keep all the guards safe.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it. This isn't a point of board discussion at this time, but when that item comes up, I'll ask the board whether or not they wish to inquire of you. So, thank you. Anyone else for this initial public comment period? Okay. Seeing none, we'll close the initial public comment. Go to item number 8, the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve our consent agenda this evening?
Support.
And move to support. Any discussion among the board? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, that passes. Item 9, tentatively adopting the 2022 budget and a schedule of public hearings. I'd like to move to at least just get it on the table to approve the resolution with the tentative budget to tentatively adopt the 2022 budget and the schedule of public hearing for September 27, 2021. Is there a second for that?
Support.
All right, now it's on the table, and it's open for further discussion. Board members.
I guess I will go if nobody's going to go. I did have questions on page 24. And I realize that this is just a budget. It doesn't mean we're going to spend the money. But I'm going to get to 23, page 23. Parks and Recreation. So in the 2020 budget, it had the same thing under capital outlay and capital outlay fixed assets. And when I had asked about it last year, the answer was $200,000 for resurfacing and $400,000 for the Greenway Trail. And both of those things, resurfacing I believe is pretty much wrapped up, going to be wrapping up, we'll be paying them soon. But we did pay that Greenway Trail part, so I just wonder why it's back on there again. That's $600,000. What is that money for? As far as I can tell from that budget, they overspent their budget years and over and over and over. Last year and the year before, between the clock tower, the border wall, Maplewood Trail, I think we spent $1 million at Rosewood Park. So those are all items that weren't expended on it. So when I look at that, and I know resurfacing has gone over budget because of the fact that it tore up the existing because it didn't pass the bounce test. So I just look at that and say, I'm wondering why we're adding another $600,000 when they've outspent the rest of the year. So as far as I'm concerned, there should not be any of that fund money budget for at least a couple of years.
Yeah. In fairness, I think some of what we called rebranding or entryway, beautification, and so on wasn't a quote-unquote parks expense, although that's where I think we ran it through. But yeah, good point is made. Anybody, you want to go point by point, or do you want
I just wondering if there was something that's changed at that money for $20,400.
I think in line with the somewhat vague goals that were set this year, that one of the goals had been that we may want to do something in the parks, whether that be related to a particular park improvement or something that is part of the 5-year park plan that would be discussed among that committee, and I know they're still working on that park plan. I think it was just to, as I understood it, to allocate something toward the stated goal that we may want to reserve monies toward that park plan and whatever may come out of it. So it has to be defined in a sense.
Placeholder. Oh, the other thing I forgot too is $350,000 for the muck land. So add that on top. That was an unexpected cost. Yeah, that wasn't in the budget. I think that's part of what put us over the budget where we had to contribute $1.125 million from our general fund.
I'd like to bring up the quote-unquote muck land because I think that might be one of the things we did talk about, the possibility of putting a trail around that natural area to extend off from the trail. I mean, it's just one of the possibilities.
Right. I think our discussion was maybe getting out to Bauer. I think it's
but I think more temporarily than that, we've talked about just going around the area that we own currently and the future's the future. But anyway.
Just look at
to do amend that you'd like to make?
Yeah, I would make a motion to amend that because here's the other thing is we can always add it later. I don't want to put it on there now and leave that as the option. If services decides that's it, we do a public survey and our constituents say yes, by all means, spend more money on something, then we can always vote and make an amendment as a board to whether it be $300,000, whatever the project cost is going to be for that particular thing. That way there's the transparency of they know what that money's going for. There's kind of a heads up on it.
So is there a motion?
Yep. Well, I don't know. Someone, I'll make it separate. Should I do all my amendments? Because I've got other issues too in other departments.
I think they probably will stand to fall on their own. If they're not within the department, don't make multiple ones, but maybe just for this department.
Yep, I would say that my motion would be to remove the capital outlay and the capital outlay fixed expense line items.
I have a question, an easy one. Is that all right? At this point?
If there's a second first, or just so we can discuss?
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
Is there a second to the motion? And because I want you to have your discussion, but I want to see, it's got to be on the floor before.
So, repeat what the motion is, Mike.
My motion is to remove line items capital outlay as well as capital outlay dash fixed expense, $200,000 and $400,000.
Completely from the amount, or does it go somewhere else? Remove it from Parks and Rec, but does it go somewhere else?
Well, I mean, that was something we could discuss later, but remove from the budget as a whole, which could always be added back later if we had a vision.
I'd support that.
Okay, on the table for discussion. And then we'll go point by point among anything people bring up. Yes.
My 2 cents is that we have 4 goals for this year related to our parks. And we've had conversations about pickleball, and we've had conversations about that muck land. And so it seems to follow that if that is something that we've set as a board goal, then we would want to allocate funds to that end, even if we don't know specifically what it's going to look like, because we're looking at our park plan and we're going to get input from our constituents and all of those pieces, even if we don't know exactly what it's earmarked for, those lines seem very much in line with our board goal related to our park plan and continued park improvement.
And I would agree that is a goal of some of the board members when we voted, but then I look at another goal, which was transparency, and that's where I look at this piece of parks. We've invested a lot in parks. We've got phenomenal parks. I know people come from Holland, New Zealand, Wyoming, Kentwood, Grand Rapids, to our parks. They're that good. And I guess the question is, we need the transparency with the public and say, are you okay with us spending more? Spend $1 million for the splash pad at Rosewood, spend $1 million here, $5 million there, $1 million there.
I think by putting it in our budget, though, that is the transparency. That's saying we anticipate a capital outlay in the area of parks, and so come to our public hearing on September 27 if you don't like that idea, and tell us so. It seems like putting it in the budget is more in line with our goals of transparency than what it would be to take it out of our budget and then later down the road in the fiscal year, if we have something come up to then approve money. That seems less transparent to me than budgeting for it in advance of a public hearing on budget.
I would agree with that. I think we should be upfront that this is what we're looking at. And then if you haven't already made some type of commitment to be pursuing these and to have these public meetings, but the board has not even looked at the possibility of what it would do to our budget, I think we're being much more transparent by saying this is what we're looking at. It would only be passed with a majority of the board voting for it. So it's not as if...
A specific expenditure would only be passed?
I think it'd be different if there was a label attached to it, but it's pretty vague. That's what it is. And as far as the transparency part, there was no $350,000 for the muckland in the parks budget, but we did that. I didn't. But.
And then since then, we've set a goal to be more transparent, like we are.
Okay, and I guess green space is not muckland. You didn't like it. We know you don't like it, Michael. You still don't like it. No one thinks you voted for it. So we're not trying to make you do something with it, but I do tend to think, unlike the federal government, I'm pleased about this, when you allocate something to a budget, and even our state government, they tend to feel like if I don't spend my full budget, I won't get an increase next year. But I think we've proven, we've got a long track record of showing that if we budget money in this fashion, and we choose not to spend it, or there's not the political will among the council to vote for any one of these several ideas, it won't happen, and it won't be as though we say, well, let's spend it, you know? So I think in that respect, what we'd be doing otherwise is artificially possibly inflating the general fund, which then I suppose might lead to another discussion about, man, we got too much money, you know? Well, we do if you aren't planning for future improvements or things of that kind. So I do think there's some merit in, yes, uncertainty about how it would be spent, but in saying that it was a board goal or several goals were discussed, one of which may or more than one may come to some kind of fruition or may not. And if it doesn't, then I guess we've got that excess money there at the end of the year, and we'll have to see what materializes in looking forward, you know, going forward with the 5-year park plan. But and I didn't need to. You use your terms sometimes. I get fun with it. So
I know you think sometimes you can be offensive, and I tread lightly.
Well, you see it as an occasion, or to slip in things like shenanigans.
Under the
table, in the cover of drafts, and those phrases. Like, you know what, I sit here, I'm part of the council. We do things above board, so, and we don't buy.
What did they do on that property before we bought it?
Well, so they had gardens and things of that nature.
Well, you make it sound like it comes around its already term, like, I'm referring to.
I think it was chosen for a purpose, but go ahead, Gary.
So the question I have is, when you have it under capital outlay fixed asset, are those restricted funds, and how are they restricted? What can they be used for?
First of all, the only reason there's two accounts there is something we do for our financial statements to separate large ones and big ones. Smaller capital outlay versus the larger ones that we capitalize. That's the only reason. For your purposes, you can combine the two. And it is simply a placeholder for the goal that you've adopted. You will have to approve something in the future if you want to, or if you don't approve anything, it will just stay on fund balance. So if you offset this number to answer your question, it would go into the contribution from fund balance up above it. We reduce that.
Okay.
Unless you allocated it somewhere else.
For me, it's less of an issue that it's in the budget. It's more for me, the amount. $600,000 in goal seats. I'm fine with it being in there, just not that much. And mainly because, we gotta live within our means. And we just spent a lot of money on tips and racks and stuff, so that'd be my 2 cents. I'm fine with it being in there, having something in there, because it is a lot more difficult to come back and then ask for the budget money in there. So that's kind of my 2 cents.
The 2 bills that I have, number 1 is first, and you kind of answered it, Dan, which is, is there any historical information that I maybe am not aware of that we just don't have the $600,000 and is it there? Is it for Parks and Rec to be used? Or did we already spend it? And then the second would be, as it relates specifically to Parks and Rec, but really all the 5 goals, I think there's possibly, this is for a thought, honestly, for everyone to build on, but an opportunity for us to go back to the constituents to see how we're spending on these bigger goals, not, we don't have to bore them with the smaller details, but these bigger ones, like a Parks and Rec goal of $600,000, because, again, I'm somewhat similar to Ryan, it's okay that it's there if we have the money there, but how we spend it could go 4 different ways. The public may want to say, I'm good, let's just make them beautiful and bright, and that's what those line items are from the top, all the way up until the last 3 lines are really those overhead costs that make sure that what we have are maintained and even strained. That may be what the constituents come back with. But they may end up being like, yeah, we want another, $1 million park, or maybe it is only a $400,000 dog park or something like that. We'll want to have that in our back pocket before we spend. And that will help us drive how we spend whatever it is, if it's at $600 that we align on or $200 that we align on. As long as we have it, that was my question number 1. It is there, it is Parks and Rec, there isn't any historical information that I don't know that it shouldn't be there.
It's only allocated to parks because you would allocate it. It's basically part of our general fund, which you can allocate to any expense you want within our general fund.
Okay, we put it there. Yeah, and we put it there because we have a Parks and Rec goal.
Right.
But the Parks and Rec goal could be maintaining the even strain, so there's no money there. Or it could be, put a new park in. So there should be money there.
And we've been talking about, in services, we've been talking about how, what our process is going to be, and you'll be part of those conversations now moving forward, which I'm so excited about. We've been talking about what that process is going to look like as far as getting constituent input and all of those things. But we have to put the process in place and then carry out the process. And so to me, it just seems like we would want a number there because we don't know what the constituents are going to say. We don't know yet what the process is going to be, let alone what the results of the process are going to be. And so it seems like having a budget then, right, so that once we get the feedback and the services committee puts the plan in place and brings that before the board, then we're not saying, well, we don't have money in our budget to do that. We do it right there, hold it in place for right now, and we probably won't touch the full 600, maybe we'll touch none, maybe it will come from the constituents, but it needs to be something bigger. But I am looking forward to services committee going after that.
Okay. And if we took it out of here, does this just go away then? If we were like, yep, all right, take it out of here, the 200 and the 400, does this just go away?
For the general fund, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So those 600 could go in another different holding bucket.
If we gave it up out of the Parks and Rec budget, then it essentially goes back into the general holding bucket. At which point, if the services committee came up with a plan and then came to the board for approval, then we would have to say, then how are we going to fund that? And then instead of saying, well, we can fund it because we have the dollars already in the parks budget and it's a parks thing, instead of that being the situation, it would be going back to the general fund to pull money out of it that isn't allocated to parks already.
But if we build a good argument based on what the constituents want, we have a good idea of the price, that could be a nice one-pager to go back to the general fund to say, okay, yeah, here's our homework, we did it. Can you please give us X amount of dollars from the general fund, and then we can release the funds from there. Okay.
To me, that'd be like saying our goal sessions can't be held annually among the board unless we have approval of our constituents. That is, they elect us to set a direction, maybe the specifics of a certain project you want to survey, but it's almost kind of with you back in the sense that if you ascribe too much to the general fund, you're being intentionally vague almost to the township to where, hey, wait a second, I would have come to perhaps discuss that, or where is that coming from now? You're going to spend $500,000. You didn't even budget that for this year. Sounds worse almost to me than saying, okay, it was in the budget, or maybe if you didn't spend it, hey, I could have sat in the general fund all year because you didn't spend it. And you say, well, okay, it didn't harm it any. I guess both directions. You look at it and say, until there's a majority vote of the board, it's not going to be spent. But it seems fair to the public to say, this is something that came out of a goal setting session that could come to fruition. We're giving you the heads up that at least we're making provision for that potential.
I would argue the other way and just say, we're telling the people, we've got your money, we're holding it in the general fund. We're not telling you where we're going to spend it, because like, some people might say, I don't want any more park improvements. But why are you taking my money and put it there? We'll say, nope, we're keeping it in general fund, and we can put it, if the majority of the public says, yes, we definitely want a pickleball court, which we discussed as about $1 million at Woodcrest Park. If that's the case, then at least they know, and then we pull it, because to put an arbitrary number of $600,000 in there, well, it's $1 million, we're going to need a budget amendment anyway, so that, you see what I'm saying?
And we looked at,
still their money, it's the taxpayers' hard money.
you can spend $50,000 at Maplewood Park and convert a tennis court or two. So, I mean, we've looked at various possibilities that don't all have to exceed our budget. But I think, Michael, what it would lead to with someone like yourself, just from past history, is the budget that general fund becomes because we don't want to be specific to a particular account. Then the next discussion that comes from you is, we got too much money. We're collecting too much money. We need to give it all back. And to say, well, okay, it's inflating the view of the general fund beyond what it ought to look like, because you do have certain board goals and things you'd like to do, or that may come to fruition. I don't want to instigate that sort of a discussion either, but
that's fair enough. Yeah, and I think the key is we get the input from the public, because so far these goals are established by people on the board without feedback other than friends and family on what direction to go. But we want to really survey the community and decide what they want. Because it could be, and we could tell, hey, what do you guys want to see? You want us to do more park improvements, or this, or that, or maybe it's something not as glamorous, but convert all the lighting in the township from metal halide to LED. That's a $2 million cost from the rough work I did, but it's a 3-year payoff, and then we're literally dropping our electric bill, which is it's a line item in the budget. We dropped that by 65%. So it's not a glamorous fun one to do, but we're kind of constituents. Here's an option. It's going to save you money in the long run. What do you think? Get their buy-in. That's the key. Get their buy-in.
But the services committee is working on that. The services committee is working on a plan to get the community input and to get the community buy-in. And so to say, services committee, we don't trust you enough to give you a budget to do anything with the plan, but still we want you to get the plan. And what we want to tell our constituents is we're putting the money in the general fund. And what you just said, Michael, was we're not going to tell you where it's going to yet, which seems like the opposite direction of transparency for me. I think it is the board goal, and if we trust our services committee to put together a plan to re-examine our parks plan and to get constituent input, if that's the direction we're moving, we've got to give the parks budget money to do something about it, to bring some proposals before the board once that plan is made.
I think at this point, probably not going to change lines. I just want to be one at a time. There's a motion on the floor. It's been seconded. He's going to raise his. Oh, sorry. I looked at you one time. You're talking. I thought you didn't say nothing.
I got a couple of questions. So, I struggle with the amount of $600,000, and so if the money isn't spent, does the $600,000 roll into next year's budget? Does that accrue?
It goes back into the general fund.
There's a lot of different terms coming out here, but once I understand, general fund is like fixed checking account and different investments from it. Cash, okay, that's your money. A budget is creating a plan of how to spend the money. Money does not move at all from this budget. This budget is just creating a plan of how to spend it. So no money is moved. The money just stays there. When you approve a project and it comes and we send it to some person who's doing something for it. That's the bills you pay. That's how money comes out of the general fund when you
That's what I'm asking, because, I work with budgets, and some budgets are restricted funds. Those funds accrue. So sometimes you have a budget, let's say the budget for park improvements, you put $600,000 this year. Okay, next year that's $600,000, we can add another $600,000.
No, it doesn't accumulate. It has to be reallocated every year.
That's why I'm asking the question. Here's my question. That's great, you're gonna do community input and everything, but the timeline is that you won't get to spend this money next year because you won't be that far along.
Okay, then I will sit there and then we can have the.
No, and that's why and that's fine, that's fine. I'm just making sure that I'm just trying to get this in my head, okay? Because all I'm saying is, by the time you get you get the community together and you put a few meetings together, months go by, and then you get your plan and you get your bid, and then you gotta get somebody to do it. I just know time-wise, and I'm like, okay, this could happen not in 2022, but in 2023. The money's there, and it's a placeholder. But we can spend a lot of time arguing about $600,000, but I would doubt that you would get to spend $600,000, whatever plan you might have, because it's just timelines leading in all the process.
Yeah.
So.
But it's saying it's saying to our public hearing, this is a goal, and so we're willing to put some money behind it when the timing is right.
My point is that next year you're going to have to come back for it again. Because it's going to disappear, and then next year you put another budget together. That's why I'm asking if it's accrual or not. Because that would make a difference.
It doesn't disappear, it's still in the budget. It's still
You
in
have to put it back in the budget again next year.
Yeah, no, you're right, Gary. It doesn't accrue. He's worried that once you put the 600, it carries over to the next year, so you don't then get carried over to the next year.
But it'll just be like this, but I mean, like last year, right, or for 2021, we had those dollars, and then the activity so far has been zero. And so then if we spend none of it this year, essentially those middle columns will look exactly the same a year from now, right?
Mm-hmm. If that's what you request.
You request a budget where you're putting away money for remodeling of your house or putting away money for a car. But it's saying to the public, this is close.
No, I get it, but I'm just trying to.
But we don't know if it's close.
I'm going to budget 101 here and just trying to figure out where we're at with this thing.
We'll eventually vote and decide and say.
I get it. No,
Part of it could also be used for expanding the garage, the DPW garage, if the board decides to use it too. That's one of the things we talked about. So a portion of it could be for that, but not a large portion of it.
correct. All right.
I come from similar to maybe where you were going with this area. You don't necessarily assign dollars yet until you've identified the scope of the project and get the constituents buy-in. And typically, I hear the other side too of like, gee, you put it back in the general fund. It looks like it's a lot. We don't know what it is, but at least we're communicating to the public. If there is here, we do a line to go zero here. It is going to go out with the 4 or 5 goals so that the public does see that we have these 4 or 5 goals. We just haven't quantified them yet. So we're almost not caught in front of the horse, at least the bill that I have.
Are we going to pursue things without a budget?
What you do is you go forward. Well, we know we need to make sure we maintain an even straight. We have to make sure that at least for the parks specifically, we've got those overhead costs to keep these parks beautiful, bright, safe, make sure the turf is not failing its drop ball test and all that stuff. That is like hands down where you start with the budget. It's the incremental budget where you could do something in addition to that's new and exciting and fun. You don't necessarily put a dollar figure to it until you go back and you identify what the scope of the project is, what the buy-in is, the data, the people behind it. Then you quantify a number and you put it there. Before that extra dollar figure gets in more of a general fund.
I'm going to call for a vote on this first amendment because we're going to have a few more, I think, and time is moving along. So let's make a roll call because I can't Drop myself to discern days and nays. Mr. Keel. Or hold on. It's on his motion to amend the budget to remove the $600,000, right? That was seconded by Gary?
200, 400,000.
Yeah. Okay.
Is it still me? No.
This is Mayor's time? My time?
Remove it from,
Remove it.
and put it back in general fund?
It would be automatically.
I say yes.
Mr. Farm?
No.
Mr. Valerie?
Yes.
Treasurer?
Yes.
Clerk is a yes. Supervisor?
No.
Okay. All right, passed 4-3 with that amendment. Next point, I guess we're with you, Michael, and others will get your chance as well.
If anybody wants to jump in between.
Anybody want to jump in between?
Dan, have we ever operated without a budget as we go through our goals?
It doesn't sound like a question you were trying to really ask a question.
So, it's not operating without a budget. It's not. Because the problem is now, all you'll have to do is just ask for an actual amount. Instead of just throwing $600,000 out there, to saying, hey, this is what we're going to throw in there. Now it's an actual amount that's going to have to be asked. So if you want to pick a block for it, and it's $20,000 or $200,000, then it's just, hey, this is $200,000. Just amend it and fix it.
I echo
That's what's going to happen now.
I echo Becky's comment. I'm excited to go to these meetings and understand because we could really pull together a really nice one-page plan on exactly what we want to do and go back to Dan, and let us see if they'll give us a couple $600,000 to do it, or maybe it is $1 million, or maybe it's zero. But
Anyone wish to jump in before Michael's next point? Anybody?
Are we going to take the same approach to the other departments within our budget that have capital outlays? It just seems like we put a big preference on parks, where the argument, does that argument then apply to all of the other places that we have capital outlays? Does it apply to senior transportation on page 25? Does it apply to the library on page 24?
Probably.
Just seems silly saying that. I don't have a question. But it feels like we're doing something to parks that we aren't doing anywhere else. But maybe that is Michael's next thing. So.
All right, hearing no one else jump in, Michael, what's the next point?
I guess our next point was when looking through the revenues from the senior transportation, it appears that
Here's the page.
first page is revenues.
Okay.
Transportation fares, it's about 2/3 of the way down.
Page 20.
So current,
25. 25, okay.
yeah, that's the actual senior transportation department page. I guess you can trust me when I say that current activity, transportation fares, so money they've got from people riding buses, 17,869 so far. 50,000 budgeted. Now we do get money from the state, and I'm not sure, are we getting close to the amount of riders we have to qualify for the grant? Is it close, or is it looking not very good? Otherwise.
Well, we get paid up to 15,100 rides. We get paid everyone up to that. That's where our things is out. 13,000.
So I'm looking for, I'm just going from memory, if I'm off, let me know, it's around, we get $15,000 from the state for state transportation? Grant money?
No, it's like 40.
40, isn't that what you first page? I can never find this stuff when I'm looking. Oh, here it is, transportation grant. So the budget is for 30,000. Year to date, we've only gotten 21,918. First page. Oh, you're in like the 22. So that's the actual budget. This is the revenue sheet, the first page. All right, money that we're getting from it. So between the two, we've got $22,000 in grant money and then $18,000 in fares. Yet the cost of the budget, which is that page now, let's see, was it 27? I'm going from memory right now, I say $140,000 for that budget. I'm sorry, the budget's $196,000 for senior transportation. And I guess what I'm getting at is, we're subsidizing it. And I'm good with subsidizing it. I think it provides an important service. But when you're talking almost $200,000 taxpayer money for it, and revenue we receive from it is, don't fail me now, math, $40,000. And that's right, we could be hiring Ubers.
Clearly, we are subsidizing it heavily.
Right.
And with COVID, it only amplified that subsidy when it was shut down for quite a while. And the program obviously was stopped quite a while last year. And there's still people, it's affected people's rides. But yes, you're right, it is very expensive. It's expensive to take people who are primarily needing a wheelchair or different special needs in the transportation. It's an expensive ride. To have a driver, bring people where they want to go, or obviously it's a heavy subsidy. It's a service that we're paying a lot for.
Right. And I remember at the height of COVID, you had called me and told me, right now we've got one rider.
Yeah.
One rider, just one. Everybody else found an alternative way to get there. So it's just that you provide something for next to free. Of course, everybody can jump on it. I would use it to send my daughter to school in New Zealand if I could. She's not seen it though. But I'm not recommending slashing the budget or anything crazy, but I just look at that, keeping that in mind, subsidizing to the tune of $160,000. Do we really want to add a new bus to that? And I know it's basically free, but it's perpetuating that, something that needs to be fixed. And I'm not sure that would be services that wouldn't address that, but. A motion? Let me think of how I want to craft that motion. Well, I guess I'll see if I have any support for it. Just to do a general, I'm not sure what an acceptable subsidizing rate is. I'd have to see ridership too to really craft something good.
Well, if you're trying to raise fares, would be the alternative in your control, to raise fares or reduce service. Those are the two choices.
Right.
So I don't think that has to be done at a time of a budget. I think you could do that outside of the budget and say we want to raise fares or reduce service. I mean, you can do that at any time. If that would accomplish what you're trying to accomplish, you either have to raise fares or reduce service. Effectively, it does the same thing. Raising fares will lower the number of rides. Making the service more difficult to use would reduce the rides and eventually reduce the subsidy.
Right, and I'm not advocating for making it for-profit, but something kind of close to not even a break even, but somewhere in that direction, moving towards a break even. Just not averaging so much. So you know, I'm going to skip that one. I guess I should have thought more how I wanted to craft that resolution. Next item, same thing, library. What's the percentage of people using it? Do we have numbers? How many people per day? And that one kind of came up as we were doing, accounts payable check when we were paying an online author to do a one-time seminar. We cannot reuse it, cannot replay it. 45 minutes, $750. And I'm like, they've got way too much money. And then they'd come in and guess how many pictures, which is fun. Actually those speakers combined, there were 4 of them, it was almost $2,000. And then on top of that, they were giving away, I believe it was a $50 Visa gift card to anybody who attended it. So on top of that, it cost you inviting people to come in and watch it, which is, libraries though, we got to get people in there. I'm just wondering, is it maybe time to rein it in just a little bit until we see some results? Because as far as numbers go, I check the numbers every time I come in. Just the other day it was 1 o'clock and it was at 120 people through the gates. Once you break it down with a $1.4 million budget, that's just 3% of the community. Now, it could be more, but it's repeat customers. At what point do you just throw a giant number out there and let them have at it? So that one I would recommend reducing the budget. Library. I'm putting it back up there on my cover sheet. By $400,000. Reduce the budget to $1,093,400.
Michael, why wouldn't you?
Wait, is that a motion?
I'm sorry.
Is there a second to the motion? Okay, next point.
Too much too soon. I won't even bother.
I would need to know the numbers to look at that type of drastic cut. I would have to see the numbers.
And I guess the main point, I just wanted to bring it up for discussion to see if there was any support or interest in
Are you,
discussing
on
it.
PS 24, I'm looking at it, and if I were to look at your exercise, where would it affect salaries and wages line?
When
Or is it,
you're adopting the budget, you're basically adopting by department. So you don't have to allocate it if you don't want to. You can allocate it and then we come up with a plan. We can spread it. If you do adopt something, we can spread it, or you can pick which ones you want to spread. You don't have to allocate it by line.
And in fairness, in 2019, salaries were $585,000, 2020, $559,000. So far this year, $361,000. So that's pretty heavily padded right there. I don't want to pad it. I don't mean that in a offensive way.
I would be fine with, I'd be fine with it just being a straight line budget where what they had budgeted for 2021, don't give them an increase in there. I mean, that would be the most, that would be, I mean, he's already doing Crystal's already doing a good job with what funding he has right there. And that'd be something that I could get on board with, but otherwise, like a $400,000 cut? No, I don't think we're gonna get that.
You're saying 21.5.
It'd be the 41, 71, whatever that is.
Yep, 1.5.
you'd include the capital outlay from 21? This year it's 25, okay? You'd bring over the 50?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much, because we have budgeted 500, or 50,000 capital outlay. I'm not really sure what the capital budget would have been for that. I mean, they used 13,768. Just knocking it down to that, the 1.4719 would pretty much fall within whatever the capital outlay of this year's expenditure would be. It'd just be a straight line budget.
Is that a competing motion? The other one didn't get a second.
Yeah, I guess I'll put together a motion of approve 2020 budget the same as what 2021, or 2022 budget the same as 2021, which is 1.471900.
I could support that. Okay. So there's supported discussion among the board on holding the line on the library budget from 2021 to 2022.
Some of the comments that were made were how expenditures were being made by Rob over there. I would think that those individual expenditures would be challenged, and he would be asked, rather than throwing everything out. His management skills have been excellent. The reviews we've got in the library have been outstanding. I think it's been an incredible success. And while we're sitting here, you have the farmers market going on, which is it's virtually becoming a community center. I think it's an unprecedented success. And we were able to work our way through the pandemic, stay open through much of that, to freeze the budget because of concerns of speakers that he might have had. I question that. I think it's going to come from out from left field. And I do think there's a tremendous amount of support for the library, and this will surprise many people.
To freeze the budget and what he's already under?
I think
That would be my concern. Like, he's already doing that right here. He's already under the budget. Year to date, $121,000. So just to freeze line it, it's not like cutting his legs out.
That money goes into the general fund. It's not spent. If you don't spend it. But our team has come up with this as a proposal, and we're now micromanaging them. And they're the full-time people. They're the ones that have direct contact with our staff. And now we're going through it, and we are micromanaging them. And they're the ones that deal with this all the time. And they've had a record of turning the money back in. And we have just an incredibly successful budget program. We have no debt. And Dan, on his last evaluation, it was the highest ratings right across the board. And when you do this, you're saying our management is failing. And that's the way I look at it. And I think they've done an incredible job. And this is micromanaging people. And we're stepping into this pretty much part-time people and telling them how they should be running the township when they have extra money, they don't spend it. If anything, they roll it back in.
You know what, John, in sympathizing with some of what you said, I would just say it's a modest proposal that has been made tonight. I won't support it, but I think the votes are there for it, and I think it will not impinge upon his ability to run the library. I'm not gonna support it only because I want Rob to know he has the full support of the supervisor behind him, and I don't want it to be misinterpreted that I'm not gonna sit here and fight over holding the line and not increasing 21,000 when they are underspending by about 125. The votes are there. I don't think it's coming down hard on them. I think in comparison to what Michael proposed, I think it's doable.
And I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
But it's a slap in the face for our management. They're the ones that put this together. They've done it for years. This has been Dan's lifetime being our treasurer. And to now go through this line by line, we're the ones that decide where the money's going to be going. So like that, even the budget itself for our parks. We'll all vote on that, but this way we're showing the public that this is where the monies are going to go, or what we've allocated, because we're serious about this, and that's why we set the goals, and that's why we want to have a 5-year plan.
I think Dan would say, speaking to Dan and others who have input and sitting right here, but I think Dan would say, there's a little bit of art to this science, meaning you don't always know what to anticipate or expect in a given year. You do your best in estimating, and knowing you have to go through the process with us, you always have the understanding too that things can be modified or changed. And I don't think, unless we're making, like the motion we've already lost, making what might seem more significant, I think for something like this, I think management would say, and even Rob might say, I don't know exactly what we're going to spend or need, and I don't feel that a 1% or less than 1% change will affect what we're trying to accomplish. So I hear you, but
Or principle.
Yeah.
See, government is built differently than private enterprise, because government automatically builds in an increase every year. So it's not like they actively said, we're going to strategically do this much. If you probably look past every past budget, they've all built in increases. So it's the fact that he's under it, and this is just holding the line on it. I mean, many of us were elected for doing this exact process to make sure that we hold accountability. And I'm pretty sure Rob will be perfectly fine with the budget that he's given, and that he'll be able to fall in line with that. He's obviously already fallen in line.
Why don't I say a few things about why it's higher? We built a new building, and obviously services change in anticipation of what services could be, and so we built in some additional staffing potential. And then, of course, you're familiar with the pandemic that struck us just after we opened the facility, and so we also sent a lot of people home. Okay, they weren't getting paid by us during that lengthy time they weren't working for us, so that brought some numbers down in last year. Also, I didn't approve any new positions. You know, at the time we didn't know what was going to happen, so I held the line, no new spots. And so that's what's creating such a gap right there. We anticipated some need in a facility that would open without a pandemic, but that's not what we've experienced yet. And we've basically been operating in a situation where we've had that. I don't think the 21,000 is unreasonable. I'm not trying to say that, but I wanted to understand why it was so much lower than what it was anticipated. We had a vacant position, and we took our time before we filled it. Of course, we didn't fill spots when it was closed, so there was some gaps with employees for a time. All under the concern was what is going to happen with our funding, where would we be at? Now we know we're okay, we know things are stable as far as our funding, but we didn't know that, so I didn't allow positions to be filled. So that's on me, but that's kind of the decision I made, and we hold the line where we're at. So I hope that helps you, but I don't think that is a big deal.
Michael, are you willing to sort of retrench your position? And Kirsten, are you on board with the motion? Because if so, then I think there'll be 4 votes there, and we can move to the next topic. Joe, you seconded. I figured. I mean, I presume. Yeah.
Yeah, I would be okay with either withdrawing mine, and go with mine, or using that as an amendment to my motion.
Yours didn't get a second, I don't think, and so it disappeared.
So we're good. Yeah, we're good. I did have a quick question though. The capital outlay of 25,000, is that something specific?
No.
Okay. And then at first I was like, repairs and maintenance, 75,000, brand new building, but it's just 60,000 alone is just cleaning for that building. Correct. So probably cleaning, mowing, landscape, that kind of stuff. Which is always one of my things. It's not so much just the initial cost of the building and stuff. That's awesome, but it's that continued maintenance, that reoccurring costs like the wall. I believe $5,000 just to mow that. Like, these are small piece of land. What is it? It adds up. So that's right. I like things that save money.
Call for the vote. Any objection? Go ahead.
Supervisor.
Again,
Is it roll call?
No. I've got to get my mind straight again. No.
Okay.
Vote to the Treasurer?
Yes.
Mr. Melvin?
Yes.
Mr. Swan?
No.
Mrs. Manti?
Yes.
Mr. Steele?
No.
Okay. So that amendment passes 3. Does anyone else have any amendments, including Michael, to bring forward on the budget? And if you're pronouncing that right, is it Manti? I want to get it right too.
Oh, Monti.
Monti. Okay.
Don't blame me, it's Melvin.
Hey, hearing no one else, Michael, you?
I think I just wanted to highlight a few points and have some discussion on where we're headed and just start thinking about this is, people work hard for this money. We got to make sure that we're being good stewards of it and transparent.
I appreciate the sentiment behind it, and I know this is a preliminary approval. It'll go before the public for a public hearing and then a final vote, and then as Dan likes to continually remind us, you can always change what you budget with the right vote later on if you feel like you made a mistake somewhere. So,
and I will add too that going line by line the budget, that's our job. We're supposed to do that.
Okay, so now we had a motion originally that I made and was seconded. I placed it on the floor. We've had 2 amendments that have passed to it. So are you ready to vote on the original motion as subsequently amended twice? That is both with regard to the library and the, help me, the
Parks and Rec.
parks. Are you guys ready to vote on that now?
Yep.
All right. So all in favor?
It's roll call.
Roll call. Sorry, roll call. This is Monti.
Monti. So yes, and amend.
The 2 amendments. Well, including those.
That's for the public hearing with those 2 amendments.
Those 2 amendments on it. Yes. Ms. Swan?
Yes.
Mr. Melvin?
Yes.
Mr. Steele?
Yes.
Treasurer?
Yes.
Clerk is yes. Supervisor? Yes. Okay. Just a thought, because I see people waiting here patiently here at close to 8. Would you guys have any problem with us moving item 11 and swapping with number 10?
I think that would be a very kind thing to do.
All right, so I'm going to make a motion to amend our agenda to move item number 11 to precede item 10. Is there a second?
Second.
Anyone opposed? All in favor, say aye.
All right.
So, we are now at the additional crossing guard post at Bergley Elementary matter. And I'll just say preliminarily, and I hope the board doesn't have a problem with this, some of you do, but since we do have the principal here this evening, and we don't have other public, and we don't seem to have a line of people that want to all talk, I don't personally have an issue with us while we might not normally interact directly. You've got a specific point for which he's here, and if there's something that would be helpful to you in casting your vote, I want you to be able to avail yourself of that resource. So, everybody good with that? Okay, you don't have to, but you may. So, is there a motion to, one way or another, to place this before the board?
I'll make the motion to approve entry into an agreement with Denison Public Schools, with them paying half the cost to add an additional crossing guard at Bergley Elementary to help students cross 12th Avenue north of Port Sheldon, as requested by Denison Public Schools and recommended by the Services Committee.
Okay. That's a mouthful, isn't it?
I just read it off.
Any second to that motion?
I'll support for discussion.
All right. Discussion. Perhaps you'd like to start, Becky?
I will happily start. In the effort of transparency, I think it's worth noting that Bergley Elementary is my home away from home. I taught there for this is year 16 and sent my child there pre-COVID. And so I just want to acknowledge my bias on this topic. But I think that this motion falls directly under the umbrella that the board is tasked with, which is to ensure the health, safety, and welfare of the people in our community, including our children. Bergley is on the corner of 12th and Port Sheldon. It's a very busy intersection. And Bergley's property is unique in that there is a residential home right in the middle of our parking lot. So this is Bergley, like our kindergarten wing, lower L office, upper L, 6th grade in our autism categorical program. And then this is the parent pickup circle drive. There's angle parking all through it, so it's a very tight 2 lanes of traffic during pickup time. One that is stopped to come all the way in to get their children, and then the other one that is moving, which is often cars that are parked here or in here backing out to leave. But this loop, there's a residential house in the middle. This loop, cars start parking in it at 3 o'clock. Cars start lining up at 3 o'clock and we dismiss at 3:45. And so prior to the bell, this line is bumper to bumper all the way out and has stopped traffic on 12th in both directions. It's very dangerous. There is a front circle drive in front of Bergley. Bergley's main entrance is on 12th, despite the address being on Port Sheldon. There's a front circle drive, but that circle drive is where all of our buses get on. Their buses as well as transportation for the students in the categorical program. And so unless you're in the categorical program, we don't send anyone out these doors. All of our buses leave somewhere out in the building and walk around outside to their buses or to, there's many people that meet parents right here because the cars that have backed up either try to park precariously somewhere on 12th or they park down Marymark, which is its own loop, our closest neighborhood street. There's a crossing guard, like Dr. Brown was saying, that crosses people here. But the people that we're the most concerned about, kind of what I see as our at-risk population at current pickup time, is the families whose cars couldn't fit in a circle. And the circle has to sit still for a while because you have to wait for all the cars in this area for those kids to come out of school and get in those cars before this row kind of moves and then the whole group moves forward. It's the people that live in this neighborhood, and it is all of the overflow parking of cars that park along here Right now, those children and families are just precariously crossing 12. At a time that there are cars pulling out of here in both directions, buses pulling out of the Circle Drive, traffic coming down 12, and traffic coming from Fort Sheldon and turning on to 12. So that's just kind of an overview of, I guess, the situation. We've got to find a way to get those people to be safe. And in an ideal world, they would double back to 12 and cross at that crossing guard that's already covering crossing in two directions. But they don't. And it is frightening to watch the children.
Becky, was the proposal that was made to the service committee changed to a different location?
I don't think that we nailed down locations specifically. When we were originally talking in services, we were talking about this, the electronic sign that says Bergley Elementary is right here. So we were kind of initially talking about here. But then after the fact, we noticed that the curb is already cut right here. And the curb is already cut right here, as though sometime in Bergley's history there was a crosswalk there already. And so from a cost, kind of mindset, there is this is like the wheelchair ramp that comes out of the front of Bergley. But if you kind of drew a straight line from that wheelchair ramp through where we have buses lined up and vans from other districts that take our categorical students, if you kind of drew a line, the curb is cut here, and then it's a straight across to South Marymount. And so I don't know, I would defer to James, I don't know if that has been firmed up or not.
So is the purpose to service Marymount and the cars that are parked there?
Yes.
Because students are not going down to the corner and crossing with the crossing guard.
There's lots of students that are going down to the corner and crossing at the crossing guard, but those are the students who live in neighborhoods off of Fort Sheldon, back towards 8, back towards like the Lucius and Lumen Mausoleum. There's big Bergley neighborhoods back there. So that crossing guard at Fort Sheldon itself is used heavily, but it's used by a totally different population than the families that we're talking about that are parked on the Marymount Loop. And just honestly parked precariously on 12. It is all around a frightening situation, and Denison is just space limited with that parking lot. We would love to have a bigger loop, or a loop on both sides of the building, or, some of the options, like I know at Bowerwood there's parent pickup on both sides, at Sandy Hill there's parent pickup on both sides. But we are completely limited because you walk out the door on the other side of the building and you are on Fort Sheldon. It's just so close to the road, so there really is no option with that residential house being there. Also worth noting, Bergley is undergoing an expansion that will happen in the next 2 years, being funded with bond money because we have outgrown that building. We have a teacher who's using our library as a classroom currently, and we're adding another section next year before our new expansion will get added. And so we're hopeful that as part of that expansion, maybe there's something that can be done to improve the parking and parent pickup situation there. But there really are no other options. I was talking with Dr. Graham, our superintendent, earlier today, and he said that he really wanted to be here tonight, but Denison School Board has a meeting tonight at the same time as well, which is why Dr. Brown is here as well as 3 of our other elementary principals. But Dr. Brown and Dr. Grant have been working so hard on what our other options are. We've put a lot of signage in. We've increased the amount of staff that is in all of our dismissal areas. From a personnel standpoint and from a resource standpoint, I can't think of another thing you could possibly do to make it safer, and it is still unsafe. So at some point we have to find a way to get those people across 12 to their cars.
Dan had mentioned that ramps would have to be built, and that would have to run through, I think, Ottawa County. And we'd have to find contractors that would be willing to do that before we could proceed, otherwise there could be liability. Does the school pursue that at all, or do you know where we stand?
I can't speak to that.
I think we were talking lower where the cutoffs were already in order to save time and money, if we could put it down there directly off from the building.
Dr. Brown or Dan, have either of you had conversations about that? You were talking about getting an engineer out to look at it.
Rod spoke with the Ottawa County Road Commission engineer. He's not happy with a mid-crossing like that, and doesn't like it, but they would approve it if the township board requested it.
So what is the cost?
Because that was the main.
The letter says we're going to split the cost, so what's the cost? The crossing guard cost and the, okay, just the crossing guard, or is it the, so it's not the actual project of putting the crosswalk in?
Yeah, it would have to be some.
Yeah, the cutoff right there, it's grass, it would have to be grass.
Who would supply the crossing guard? So you would supply the crossing guard?
Dr. Brown has someone that is ready to do the job, that would go to training, correct me if I'm wrong, but from our previous conversation, that is willing to go to training tomorrow if needed. She has somebody fully committed to doing that job.
I get that, but this is a forever thing.
Yep.
So, that crossing guard does 1 year and goes, hey, I don't like it, negative 10 degrees out here anymore, I'm not going to do it. So the next year, you got to find somebody else. So the cost, am I correct? I heard that services let go of the crossing guard at Denison Christian?
We didn't let go of the crossing guard at Denison Christian, we just relocated them.
You're going to go to the crossing point.
So you got rid of that crossing point.
The crossing point moved.
Okay.
Yeah, the crossing guard moved with the crossing point, but the crossing point moved from being across Baldwin where it was up to Swansea.
So the rationale for that was, why?
You have a fast-moving traffic, multiple lanes of fast-moving traffic.
And that's my concern. I look at this. Crossing Port Salem has stop signs. There's one stop sign for sure. You're already using that to make it safer. Now you want to move this one down.
Well, we don't want to move it down, it would be reversed.
You're adding this one, and you're going to put it out in the middle of the street, 500 feet, about 500 feet from where there's an existing crossing. And I'm struggling with the fact that you have a safety issue, but you want the township to solve that problem. And to me, it's the public schools problem.
I don't know that.
Pardon? That's what I'm not seeing. I'm not seeing what have you done to try to alleviate your traffic issue? And that's what I'm not hearing. You've got a loop, it's not big enough. We'll make the loop bigger.
Not your pickup time.
Anything can be done. I mean, anything can be done. It's just whether you want to do it or not.
Well, there's a private residence in the middle of the parking lot, so where you're going to expand it is.
Yeah, zoom out.
It'd be up. Yeah,
There's actually plenty of, by the ball diamond, there's plenty of room up there.
Is that part of the coming expansion or whatever? So the problem could be alleviated potentially through that? Is that like 2 years off, or what is that?
The goal is to alleviate the problem, but that doesn't alleviate the problem of student safety tomorrow and through next school year.
Well, I guess I look at it too and say, have the parents been notified that not only is it dangerous to cross 12, it's illegal?
Yeah.
So I see the issue is there is a solution, which is to walk this, I think 500 foot is, I don't know how much, like 300 foot. It's two homes there, south of Merrimack. And then when a group gets big enough, they cross over 12. Right. So that's what those kids would do. Rather than say the 300 foot going across the road legally, they could just walk down to the corner. And that's an enforcement issue, I think. Because I almost look at it as almost being more dangerous to put in across buses. One, you're crossing in front of buses. The visibility of a bus, I know they talked about that for years when I had kids, is if the bus driver can't see you if you're too close to the bus. Also, then you're shooting them out where buses are coming in and out, and people are currently trying to pull in this drive-through. There's a lot of traffic in there. And then people were actually stopped on the road. So not everybody parking on their road. They're stopping in the middle of the road, stopping traffic. I look at it also as that's very dangerous. There is a stop right at Port Sheldon, which is already one stop. So I think to add another stop, disrupting traffic, and they can't guide, the crossing guards cannot guide traffic. They can't wave parents in. They can only stop to cross people. So I think it's definitely a matter of policy. And I had the same question Gary has, how much is this going to cost? I think the crossing guard, our contribution is probably $4,500, I'm guessing.
I have a couple thoughts, if it's all right.
And the location is covered.
It'd be about 3,500 total, so just roughly guessing, I don't know, for one guard, if you can do it with one.
And that's not bad. I mean, really. And my question is, so a lot of this was based on the tragic accidents that happened. Are those kids being bused now? Because they don't have this will not create a sidewalk to that spot. There's no sidewalk on that side. So it doesn't solve that problem, it's just solving the parking issue. And those children should be bused because there's no access to their home. So that's a big one I have there, is it's not even solving that problem. And the other question is the safety part. It happened, I think it was 7 months ago, and then this is the point where we're at, is waiting 7 months and doing nothing, and then hinging on a $3,500 contribution from the township. But I look at it, if it's a safety issue, I wouldn't be waiting for it. I'd be moving. Yep, the pickup times would help with that. There's a number of things. And my daughter went to charter school, so I'm used to all the staff being out there directing students to cars, and which is perfect because safety is a concern. We had back then, parents didn't want to wait, so they would walk in front of cars, and it's just that it's a safety issue, but I just see this getting more of a safety issue, putting it with it.
And not to interrupt you, Crystal, but they heightened their efforts the first 2 or 3 weeks of school. They were there constantly trying to get kids across.
So this extension coming in, is the architect showing what the plan is, or obviously you have to add more parking spaces if you're saying?
What's the message from the board where we might cooperate with you on a temporary basis until such time as you've made, because it keeps the pressure then on those doing the design to say, well, we'd really like to spend some of that money on the building or the playground or whatever because we've got the crossing thing covered. Not perfectly, but, versus, hey, we're going to lose that if we don't, otherwise do what we should in the way of design. Because to me, it's like it's scary right now, and you're bringing it down by just a degree of scary, but it's still going to be scary. I wouldn't want to be a crossing guard, whoever you got lined up, let alone the cold, like you say, Gary, but wow, that's going to be rough, It's not a perfect solution, and you know that, right? You've tried other things. I guess I would feel like, I'm not speaking to the board, if this were something of a temporary nature that would keep the impetus on the school to use their dollars in their design and expansion to fix the problem and then revoke this because it isn't ideal.
I would be very comfortable to amend my motion to include putting this agreement in place through the 2022-2023 school year, which is next school year. So it would exist for the duration of this year and next year, and have the onus be back on Genesee Public Schools to continue to work on additional options as far as increasing the space available.
Jim, I like that. I think where we're caught, and I'm looking for a solution, is the concrete, getting the concrete in, getting it poured, and getting it approved. And if we can do that, then I think we can move ahead with this.
I don't believe that.
No, I think it's across the grass. It's the bill there. But Ann has mentioned that Ottawa County has to go through an approval process, so we open a liability.
Yeah. Normally we'd expect the property owner to put all that in, so if you have for Jenison to build it to that extent, it would have to be subject to road commission approval though, so you'd have to build it up, down, and build the stuff in there. I mean, I don't know what that would cost if that was the school would cover it. You'd have the painting as an additional cost, and to bring them out for one intersection would be more, and then just, the normal $50 or whatever, so I don't know how much it comes to bring them to one intersection, but you'd have that cost. But yeah, as long as they did all the concrete, that would alleviate that from us.
It'd be incredibly helpful if you put it in and we approved half of crossing guard. It'd be incredibly helpful. I think it'd fly for you then.
There's still the signage in the meeting. I'm still struggling with the fact that we got rid of a crossing guard and moved it down to 20th because that crossing was unsafe. It's a lot further from that crossing by Baldwin Street than it is 20th. We're making these kids walk all the way around. This crossing's 500 feet away, and we're going to put a crossing guard out in the middle of the road again, stop traffic dead, whereas at Fort Sheldon and 12th Avenue, it's a stop sign. There's an automatic stop. I think from a safety issue, if you got, I can't figure it out. I'm sorry. I just don't feel that I'm responsible. I'm not responsible for people that don't want to follow the rules. I know it sounds mean, but my rule in my business is you can't fix stupid. You can only charge for it. And that's just where you're at sometimes. I'm like, hey, I'm struggling with the whole thing just because we got rid of one saying it's not safe, and we're going to do the exact same thing in the same month.
To play devil's advocate, the Baldwin situation was 5 lanes of traffic, right?
You only get hit by one car when it's 5 lanes to one.
But it's 5 lanes of traffic that isn't, in the area of the school, isn't otherwise slowing down. At Bergley, it's 2 lanes of traffic, and for the most part, that traffic is at a crawl at best at the time that the crossing guard would be working. because of how backed up the traffic is. And so right now what you have is people like Crystal and people like Dr. Brown and people like moms or teachers that are doing their best to hold people back until there's an opening and then the people are going. You have that situation, or you can put somebody with actually some authority to stop traffic. I know they can't direct it, but you're putting somebody with a big red stop sign and yellow vest right there, holding the kids back until the cars are stopped and then letting the families through. I don't think that, I take your point and I think it is a very fair one, Gary, and I respect you greatly. But I think that lumping this situation asphalt in with what happens or why we moved the Mount Jefferson Christian one off Baldwin, the situation is just not the same. It's apples and oranges because of the speed at which traffic is traveling at that time and how backed up traffic is.
Right now, we're putting the onus on the school. They're supplying it. They're getting the guards, and we'd be paying half of it. Would be probably $3,500 to $4,000. And they say it'll save kids, and they live it and they watch it. So for $3,500 to $4,000, why would we not do it? They're talking temporary.
From a cautious support,
they're taking it.
They would have to put that sidewalk in first, though.
Yep.
Yeah, they would have to leave there. And then we would have to put up signage and all that stuff.
I'm a cautious support of Becky's motion that she's made. She's put forth an amendment to her motion, because I think this brings it from if you're going to call it a 9 risk down to a 6, not down to a 2, It's still high. And if it's temporary and through the 2022-2023 school year, then any reduction of risk, I guess, for that amount of cost for that period of time is not unreasonable, I would say. So,
is that including removing it after the 2 years? Because you don't want to leave it there.
no, you don't want to leave it there.
It's great to have it.
Get clear.
You really got to block it.
Yeah, because you'd have to actually just paint over those lines because you wouldn't want them.
They disappear every year anyway.
Yeah. True. That clarification of Becky's motion, I think that's what she intended, and I seconded that.
Yeah, I keep going back to what Gary said. He makes a great point of, it was literally the same meeting. We removed one crossing spot and because of safety and did this. And then as Becky explained, well, they've created an obstruction of traffic to slow down traffic. I think that's even worse. So it's like, we created the problem of slowing down traffic.
We haven't created the problem. The size of the student body and the large quantity of parents who are picking up and dropping off. The situation isn't something that anyone caused. The situation is just where we're at with regard to our student population and the number of families that have to pick up and drop off.
Yeah, I have one more other concern, and that's the fact that we're enabling people to park illegally on the road across the street. So when you line all them cars up alongside the road like they're a Mary Mark, it's actually illegal. They're not allowed to park on the road. I get that, but now we're enabling that. We're putting a cross guard in there going, this is okay. So I know Officer Cost can't hear you, I know that he's at our meeting, but I would love to ask that question, whether or not we're enabling people to now park illegally because we just put a crosswalk along there and say, go ahead, park here. I don't know. I'm asking the question only because
And I think that it's absolutely true that we are probably enabling that. And I don't love that we're setting that precedent, but they're going to do it whether we're enabling it or not, so let's keep the children from getting hit by cars. I went to one Bergley kid funeral. I don't want to go to another one, and the redesign is a year and a half off because it's in the planning phases of bond money being spent. Thank God the bond passed. Thank God we can do the redesign. Thank God that this can be a temporary solution. But we got to keep the children alive.
I agree 100%. The concern to address that is that when we don't have the crossing guard there, just understand it is still a crossing. And so that's part of the concern from the road commission side, that people may attempt to cross, including children, when there's no adult there. And so that's part of their concern of creating that direction there. So
Create the hazard Monday through Friday after 4 and then Saturday and Sunday all day long.
Well, I don't know how many people would cross it, but that's the risk. If someone goes there to play on the playground or something and there's no one there, and there's definitely people playing on the playground when there's no one there, and so you're going to have
the road commission would approve it before they could do it, correct?
They would approve it only if you ask them to.
Okay.
And I think that's what would have lost my vote when we had the discussion, just because you have all that traffic coming through there, just to have kids cross across there. I was more comfortable with checking out where we already had the inlet done. Yeah. Yep.
I appreciate your candor on that topic. Thank you.
So we're looking at about $3,500 to $4,000, so we'd be using to support a crossing guard, but the school system would take care of the details as far as the concrete and approval with Ottawa County and coordinate that working with Dan and our staff.
And they're providing the person for us to hire, because we're struggling to hire the one to already cover the crossing. So
And it'd be, correct me if I'm wrong, for 2 years.
we can't find people.
The rest of the school year and all of that.
Okay.
Can we call the question?
Good call on the vote.
I would like to make an amendment that we put a limit on $3,500 to just say that $3,500 is the number.
There's a motion to amend the amendment to the motion. Is there a second to that?
Which amendment are we
She
doing?
made an original motion, then she amended her motion with my support, making it temporary. And now you're looking to further amend the motion to limit the amount of the contribution to $3,500
So $3,500 was based on an estimate from Dan.
Per season.
Per season.
Per season.
I'm reluctant. I would not be in support of that amendment, Michael, for the sole reason that I haven't dug into crossing guard pay checks to confirm that amount. I just haven't.
We got 18 of them in our budget for crossing guard and did 8,000. That's $4,800 or something. But that includes other things, maintenance and some other odd things. I'm not sure what that is. It could be striping or time.
It depends. We haven't talked about this a morning and an afternoon crossing. We haven't covered some of those things in a lot of time. So, I mean, I don't know if it needs to be a morning and an afternoon. I know the real problem is in the afternoon. It doesn't seem to be a dropout problem. It seems to be a pickup problem. So I don't know if we're just doing an afternoon.
What did you have in your mind?
Both, okay. That's why I was saying that we have to cover some of those things, so.
And I do have a question of clarification too. So in the budget we have crossing guards, 18 of them, $88,000. Is that their full pay or is that just half and the school pays the other half, or they give us a check for the half?
Well, we made a point at one point not to add any additional corners unless the school involved paid half. And we've only had one school take that up, and that's Georgetown at the junior high. So we pay all of them, but we split one at the junior high.
Looks like there was just one that was a 50.
Because we have some guards for Hudsonville system, and we had two for Georgetown Christian, but we just stopped that this year. But we had some for Georgetown as well. I'm sorry, Hudsonville as well. So.
But there's 17 of them that are we're paying 100% of. So if you divide that 88,000 by 17, it's a pretty good number. And then at the 50-50 would be even less. So we're talking $2,500. of our contribution?
Well, some intersections are longer. If you look at 20th and Baldwin, because there's two schools involved with staggered start times, they're a longer period. I don't know it off the top of my head, but, and I don't know if some of them are still doing lunches. I'm not sure. We'd have to look at all that to figure out which corner, whether they're doing the lunch walk at certain spots, but there's a lot of different issues, so it's not simple to divide by 18 is what I'm trying to say.
I'm just ballparking, so
yeah.
3,500, if they're sharing half the cost, it'll definitely be under 3,500.
So.
Definitely under 3,500.
I think that our larger concern here has been one of safety both ways, honestly. With Becky saying it's safer, and I think they're making good points about, is it really, and are we causing more havoc potentially? But I think the focus on the dollars, and we know it's commensurate with what we typically pay at these other sites, I think would almost send the message of nickel and diming over someone's life. I'd rather we focus on the picture that we have, which is the whole safety issue, and agree to disagree on some of that, but I don't want to pass along a few bucks.
I should say if it was me, hey, I would have just hired the guy last year at the end of the school year.
Yeah.
I just made up.
So there is well, I don't want to let
I
your
don't want you to end it open-ended where it suddenly comes back, oh, it's $14,000.
Yeah.
You need a degree to have.
Yeah.
That's why I would like some kind of concrete number.
I feel like we've done it for enough years to know what it costs.
180 school days? So 180, most of the folks are a half hour or 45 minutes. We've been going 45 minutes, so 180 times 1.5 hours per day, and $23 an hour, $6,210.
Or 3,500 would cover, not even
But then you got to add there's a FICA charge and a few other, workers' comp, if there's an injury.
Are you looking for a not to exceed number? Is that what you're looking for?
Not to exceed.
Like a not to exceed 4,500 or something?
Works for me.
Not to exceed 4,500
Per year.
per year. I'm comfortable with that.
All right, that's been seconded. All in favor of that particular limitation on expenditure, say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, now back to Becky's amendment of her original motion, which would put this as a 2-year time limit, in essence, through the 2022-2023 school year. All in favor on that, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, that passes. And now we need to vote, I guess, on the original motion as subsequently amended. All in favor, say aye on that.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed?
Aye.
Okay. Respectfully, good conversation. Thank you, board, and thank you for coming and for your time and your thoughtful input. So,
Just so it's understood, it won't start until side gets the cement back. Like it's going to get painted, because they won't paint it until after the cement. So hopefully we know that timing.
good. Okay. Thank you for that clarification, too, Dan. So, we're going to circle back to...
Yeah, we want to start one more thing.
Yeah.
No paint after November 1.
No what? No what?
Painting. Approval, paint, then November 1.
Okay. Yeah, all right. Well,
Thank you, colleagues, for working with me on that one and hearing me out. I really appreciate your time.
it's the temporary nature of it really makes a difference. So, we'd like to see a long-term solution. So, for everybody's sake. Manette, I guess you were the one who got stood here longer by my switch there, so my apologies to you. You okay, Mike?
I was just going to say, so did that need to be part of the motion that the paint will be removed after that?
And can we say that was part of the motion that I thought I heard from her?
They agreed to that. They already agreed to remove the cement.
So I think what we're saying to you, Rod, make that pretty clear, yeah.
The paint will wear away.
You don't want to have.
Yep.
It's not rude if you decide to leave and get too serious. Thank you for being here this morning.
Prepare for your staff meeting tomorrow morning. It's going to be an early one.
Okay, item number 10 on the agenda this evening, the 2021 draft of the master plan. This is step 3 in about 13 steps that take place when the master plan is updated every so many years, usually about 5 years, but it can be more often if people want it. So, that being said, we have Manette here tonight. Appreciate Manette being available. I didn't ask her to speak, but she is willing to address any questions or concerns. So is there a motion to begin with here to place on the table the approval of the distribution of the 2021 draft master plan and proposed revisions?
So moved.
Support.
All right, so now it's before you, a lot of attachments, a lot of things you guys read through. Gary, you lived it since the beginning of the year.
You know, I might even go to the bathroom while you're going through it.
Okay. We need you though, heard that? We need you.
Something to get
That's why
over.
Manette is here. She can go through all this.
Yeah, Manette, you want to fill some of your time? No.
You got your motion, you know, what's up?
I was going to say, technically, can Gary even vote on it? Because
Yes.
he really voted, so he would be voting on something he hasn't voted.
When that issue is only in giving someone a fair right of an appeal, this is not an appeal in this situation.
I
So
was
it's a little
thinking
bit
like,
different.
hey, he's gone, let's vote without him.
You're in an appeal-proving body, you've already voted on something, that doesn't seem like it's a legitimate appeal.
Right, so like the planning commission make a decision, the zoning board of appeals, same person on both, and says, I already voted on this, and I'm going to vote again. I want
Right, so that's the whole idea of that. So yes, he can vote on it, and actually he's required to.
Okay, just want to make sure we don't do anything bad then.
All right. Well, I really hope when Gary comes back that as a planning commission member, he can sort of start with the big picture. But you saw the various attachments, and I would characterize it, and maybe you disagree with this or not, but as I read through it all, I thought largely absent major changes. That is largely status quo, if I can even use that term. Some minimal changes, a number of them to reflect maybe certain realities already. So not a monumental shift, but I thought it's an interesting comment there. Oh no!
Go ahead, please.
I think I needed that.
You don't have to remember video, that's not there. Move on.
Hi, Gary.
You did the offense. When I looked in there and seen his face, I'm like,
Move on.
when I seen your face, I'm like, shoot.
So Gary, did I talk to myself?
Moving on.
Did I talk to myself at all?
We really did fill time while you were gone. You filled our time, but no. We just kind of set the scene, and all I was saying a moment ago is it seems that at this time to review the master plan seems to be absent any particularly major changes. Is a bit more status quo, but Gary, you lived through it, so would you, for the board's sake, and Manette, you feel free to chime in as well, but just kind of give us your thoughts, the big picture about this.
Well, I think a lot of it is because I sit on the utilities committee. I also understand where utilities got to go and where they can't go because the future of the township, especially the Northwest Quadrant, depends on the sewer being run down 48th Avenue from Bauer to Port Sheldon. So you're looking at, $20-25 million to do that. And so there's not a lot that we can change because we really don't know where it's going to go. And it could be a dozen years before we get that far. So the other part is because Grand Valley owns a lot of the property from Fillmore to Pierce and that area there. Colleges can basically do what they want with their property, and we can have suggestions all we want. Very much we can do. So yeah, there hasn't been a lot of changes. There was a few corners that we did change. I know. I think we updated a few things to bring it back into line. What had been changes in some parcels that were LDR, they went to condo, they were PUD, we made some changes there. But, for the most part, we're always going to have people come trying to change zoning for other parts. We're just trying to make sure that the township know that we are at least looking at things. I think that was my take on the whole thing, is to show the other neighboring townships that we are looking into the future. So, those are good things to keep track of and keep it updated. So, yeah, that was my take. I mean, it's all new to me too, so.
One of the things I appreciated, Gary, you just touched on it, was just kind of the practical realities of the Northwest Quadrant. And I'm just going to put this on the record now for posterity's sake, because I don't see this board as really touching too much on that, as much as it's going to cost to extend sewer and sort of the long-term planning that's involved with that. But I think to myself, when I see Detroit, if you drive over there, you can't tell where one city starts and another one ends.
No.
You can't tell. And is the goal to fill every square inch of this township? Is that really, hey, we're the fastest growing township in the state, let's keep that up year after year? Personally, again, just personally, no. I like our LDR areas. I like the fact that the lack of sewer and some of the other utilities out there slows that growth and may for a long time to come, depending on what a future board may do. But I like having some country to drive through, and I'm not so sure that our goal in the long run will be, let's fill every square inch of the township so that Baldwin, Cottonwood, and every other avenue is overwhelmed to the point where people hate it here. So I'm going to say, if somebody says, what we're going to think? Who cares what we're going to thought? Well, for what it's worth, he thought we ought to leave it, more or less in the way it is. There's a lot of land extending out, and people can drive further and start new towns or grow towns that are small. Look at Blendon next to us. About time that sleepy little township maybe woke up a little bit over time. Let's undo some things.
They're totally against any growth.
Yeah, I know. It's the Wild West. But my point is, we don't have to feel like, hey, it's our job to just grow. Well, that's just an aside. So I appreciate it. It's not something you could really very well tackle at this point anyway, but that's my 2 cents on that.
Just to touch on that, I think utilities is going to stop some of that growth until somebody wants to come up with some big money.
And that was the discussion we just had in utilities earlier today.
Yeah.
Where Gary, John, and I had pretty much determined that, hey, we're going to leave that northwest quadrant alone. And then the one motion that we had was unless 48 is ever done, if it's ever redone, then that's when we would look at potentially doing it. But in the meantime, we have no intention anytime soon.
Oh, there's plenty of property that isn't developed yet. We do gain about 200 to 250 houses a year.
I think we've peaked on that. I think we've peaked and that we'll begin to diminish. No, I don't think so.
76 is what we did last year, I think.
I mean, it all varies. We've had all cycles all through time. It's gone up and down, so I think it will go up and down continually. But if you run out of inexpensive developable land, it will decline. It will. So, there is that's a choice you're making consciously if you don't advance the improvements ahead of that. So, but I don't think we're close to that point yet. I think you're talking 10 or 15 years. So.
Just to put it in perspective, City will build 340 houses this year.
Yeah.
And in 2 years, their goal is to build 500 houses in 1 year. So that's a pretty aggressive goal. That's a lot of homes. That's all over the metropolitan area, but
The demand is there.
We're not to disagree with you because we very rarely do. I would just say is I don't want to put a cap on development and tell people, here's what we think is the stop. I'm a free market guy, I'm a supply and demand guy, and I'm a property rights guy. So if somebody has a property and they want to develop it,
So should we have a gas station next door to you?
Zoning enabled.
Do you have a gas station next door to your house?
I don't live over on the corner of 8th and 4th Sheldon or 44th, whatever.
Okay, well, you're a free market guy.
8th and 44.
Residential neighborhood. Come on, there's a place for health, safety, and welfare, and that's our job, so.
It surprised me on the utilities committee when we were talking about Grand Valley, and their emphasis now is on their downtown campus, and they're no longer making land purchases out in that area. That's significant, and the fact that they're one of the largest landowners in that region, and they're focusing downtown, that sends us a message. It was mentioned in the meeting, I think Gary had said this, that there was a huge push to take 48th Avenue and turn that into an expressway back about 20 years ago, virtually an expressway. And now that's fallen by the wayside because their emphasis is downtown. That's significant.
I love myself. It's changed a lot. Not to date myself, but when I went to Grand Valley, it was Rensselaer College.
When I went to Grand Valley, they were talking about making 48th an expressway.
right. So the goal was to get it to the expressway in Jamestown, and now it's going to be a boulevard. But that's not going to change.
Did you remember when it was gravel? Watch this.
I remember when Baldwin was still gravel past 36th Avenue.
Make note that
Everyone
everyone's
Baldwin was
get a little
still
punchy with each other.
My grandparents lived at the corner of Baldwin and 12th Avenue, so when I was a kid,
Any comments in the summary of proposed future land use map revisions, which Manette and Victor and Gary with the Formal Planning Commission has done a good job of assimilating for us? Can you say something, Dan? Looks like you're...
I thought you were off the changing topics quite dramatic there, is all I was...
Oh. We were having fun and...
They're getting punchy with each other because it makes it fun.
We already voted for the meeting tonight, so.
I was here at 11:15 this morning.
I do have one issue, and it really hasn't changed that much. I read through it back in, was it 2015 last time it came out?
Yeah.
Yes.
So, yeah, I read through it then. I've read through it multiple times since then. But there is one, and it'll be easy to find. It's right in the summary proposed text revision. And it's in reference to page 42. In this one, it's in regards to the corner of Bauer Road and 48, where there's a flower farm right now, across from the subdivision.
In Baldwin?
Did I say Bauer? Sorry. Baldwin. Oh, it says Bauer here.
Yeah, you looking for...
Oh, no, I'm just reading the revision. Sorry. Confused myself. Yes, corner of Baldwin and 48. But there's one line in there that I think it would be pretty doable, just to remove the line that says, no neighborhood commercial uses shall expand to the south of the intersection of Bauer Road and 48. And I always go back to that one, it's just so odd. I've read through the master plan many times, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't believe there's any other spot in it which says, we will not develop commercial in this area, on this road, from this road to this road. This is the only spot, and that's back to me being a property rights guy and supply and demand guy, is why are we specifically saying no new development? And I've heard, excuses of, there's a gas station on the corner. If they want to put in a gas station, there's a gas station on corner 36. Well, okay, if that's the case, then why are we changing the master plan just above that to change another future land use, but it all feeds into rezoning, changing the LDR property on 44th and 8th across from the gas station to be a potential gas station. That's really close. I mean, 36 to 48 is a good distance between gas stations, but there's another one across the road, so I'm like, they're kind of conflicting. So I just, what I would like to see is just that particular line removed.
It's really not a potential gas, it could be a potential anything.
Yeah, and like you said, it could be office service, could be I'm not saying a high intensity use, but I mean, it could be a, dentist office service, it could be I don't know if a Subway would go there or whatever. I could dream and hope a Chick-fil-A would go there. But who knows? But I just don't like the fact that it's specifically saying, here's what's not allowed. I would need a whole lot of good reasons backing that up.
Gary, while I agree with what you guys did on that particular spot you're talking about, I was not part of those meetings. What's your comment on what Michael's talking about?
There was some discussion on it. If I remember right, we talked about that, and the way I was understood, the reason they did that was because we were trying to skip every other intersection for commercial. So we have a commercial venture at 48th and Fort Sheldon, which is an arterial road, and then Baldwin and 48th has been left out, and then we move on to Bauer and 48th. The reasoning, I don't remember what the reasoning was. We had a discussion about that too. Maybe Matt can help me out. But that's the gist of it, right?
Right. Well, and then if you read the minutes, Planning Commission was very clear. This is totally different from the intersection of 8th Avenue and 24th, and that's because there's sewer available to the other one. There's already a light there, and there is no sewer available to this, and there's no light here. So, but the minutes actually list there any reason. Don't you pull up those minutes? Why they?
Certainly, I mean, if Rob wants to have them in hand, so you can just recite what we've got in front of us.
And their attachment, it would be the minutes of the June 2nd, and it's motion number 17.
And I look at that one, and I know Planning Commission, the discussion at, I don't know if it was that meeting or a previous meeting, but it was, that should be LDR at 6, and I want to keep LDR. But then I look at it and say, who wants to live on a 48? And also, as far as traffic control, that's a four-way stop, so
Page 17.
it is a good spot that traffic's already being stopped. I don't know if, in future it would be a traffic light. I guess it depends on what the traffic flow on 48 and Baldwin becomes. And as far as sewer too, I believe water's available there, isn't it?
Correct, yeah.
Sewer's not, but then again, if it was, if the property owner or a potential developer said, I'm going to come in, I'm going to pay for it, I'm going to pay $1 million to hook up to sewer, which is down the road, they could do it. I mean, that's a choice the developer would make.
Well, whenever you face an event, first of all, it's not one, it's 20. To do it right. I mean, there's alternatives you could do it, maybe a temporary lift station or something if the board wanted to kind of vary our policy. But whenever you face something like that, you're gonna have that potential for the master plan to be varied anywhere in the township. And this is a 5-year document, right? And you're planning and saying what to expect in 5 years and how to guide it. So large events like that could take place sometime. You could look and make amendments to the plan at that time if someone came in, but you kind of already are looking at a utility plan saying we don't want to make the investment in that area from the utility side. So that's a different factor for you.
Right. Unless the developer came in and said, hey, I'll 50-50 this with you if you guys want to do it, which is, absolutely, that sounds good to us.
And then you look at all if circumstances change.
Right, and that's the way I look at it. So by keeping this line in there, we're basically telling them, forget it. Don't even think about rezoning this for the next 5 years. Right. You're out of luck now. All right. And that's just it, is it's like, well, it can always be rezoned. Well, yeah. What's the first thing that happens when somebody comes in for rezoning? Well, let's look at the master plan. The master plan says no.
But then they'd also look at the circumstances that develop the master plan and say, well, the circumstance has now changed. And so there's that part of it too. You sit there and say, well, the master plan was developed based on the circumstances of today. If circumstances change, that can change their opinion.
In which they can change too by saying, I will pay for it. I will pay for a lift station. I will pay for a connection.
Well, but right now we won't allow a lift station, I'm just saying. So there's a lot of factors. We want the sewer to be built gravity.
And there's the other option too, that they could, depending on what the use is, they could put in a septic. I mean, if it's a low use, the intensity is not bad. When you have 40 homes across the street, all with septic.
They have different people's opinion, and they've decided they don't want another commercial area. And recognize too, people come from all different areas. When we have had a time where we had a lot of empty commercial, and we didn't want to create another area, so that's an area of concern for some. You still have some commercial properties that are, the intensity of the use or the amount of use is not ideal. As far as there's still plenty of vacancies in commercial plazas, so there's a lot of different factors of saying, do you want to create another one?
Well, and that was another part too. I remember that was in the list of, excuses not to do it, and then that's me saying, oh, we're government, we're going to tell you what business, we'll pick the winners and losers. Well, here's what's commercial, and I look at the commercial, so we have Family Video, which is a recent addition, and now the Sprint store or whatever it was on the corner, but it looks like they're redoing that or something, so that one opened up, closed. We really don't have that much commercial. And as far as commercial goes, and you say, well, there's a 1,200 square foot property in strip mall. Well, depending on what the business is, that doesn't fit for them. It's great for if you want to sell trinkets or something.
Right.
But if you want, I'm not even sure how big the parcel is. Somewhere between 5 and 10 acres. It gives them possibilities. Sure. I mean, that's what I'm just saying is not rezoning it, not changing future land use of it, but just taking that line out to put that option out there.
If the board wants to do that, then you could send it back to the planning commission for the recommendation. That's what you could do.
That's what it would be. It wouldn't be an amendment. It'd be send it back.
Send it back.
One of the reasons you look at too is when you're doing a master plan, this goes out to the neighboring townships also. So when you look at Port Sheldon and 48, that gas station's in Bunden Township. So they deemed that commercial, and we've deemed our two corners as commercial. So it's commercial on each end. I think there's an option on that house on the corner and stuff. Same thing with Bauer and 48th Avenue. You've got commercial property across the street, because at one time that was a hair salon and a couple things. And we've reserved out of the corners as commercial too. That's why we have the ice unit there, and it's still an outlot. So what you're doing is you're trying to get along with the other townships so that we kind of keep our stuff together, so that we don't have to like, some guys will build a house on this corner, and then they put a Walmart and a Target on the other two corners. Now that guy's got to look at those. He's like, well, man, it'd be nice if you guys got along a little bit. So what you do is you forward on this. That's why we approve this document, and then it's forwarded on to our surrounding townships, Jamestown, London, Allendale, Granville, and then they go, hey, you know what? This is what these guys are doing. You know, maybe we should kind of like follow along. We kind of like create corners. So like Baldwin and 48, I believe the one side is greenhouse, the other side is zoned for, I think you put apartments or duplexes on that corner. That's $100 that piece. So then the other two corners, well, maybe it's a PUD, and it would still be residential. So it wouldn't be commercial. So that's the way I understand the reason why you kind of do a master plan. You share with the other townships, and you kind of make your areas. And so far, we've done a pretty good job. You look at the corners that we have commercial, we've cooperated with one and try to work together.
Yeah, and that parcel that's just west across 48 there, that is commercial, according to Ottawa GIS mapping.
Is that?
Yep, that's commercial. And that's why, so not to be selfish, I said, well, let's get ours commercial before a business goes across the street, because you would get the tax revenue if they're in Georgetown, not to take away tax revenue from Blendon, but that's why I just looked at it, it just made sense. It was adjoining, with the exception of being across the road, 48 from commercial, but it would be commercial and then commercial use similar.
So since the motion that's before you can't be amended, and Michael's more or less proposing the antithesis of it, that is to send it back to the planning commission, it seems incumbent on us to vote on the motion. If it fails, then presumably Michael makes his motion and it succeeds and goes down to the planning commission, right? We really can't have amendments. So
I'm not sure Dan would.
Am I right about that procedurally?
Yeah, you need to send it back. You can send it back with instructions.
My point was a moment ago is there's not a motion to, we need up or down what is currently on the table.
You either vote to send it out or you vote to send it back. Yeah, those are the two choices.
Right. Okay. So,
I'm sorry, we're voting.
The distribution of the master plan is stated here, and proposed revisions to future land use maps to the neighboring communities, Ottawa County to review, and so on, to take the next step in the process.
Keep moving it forward as recommended.
I know it's not a roll call required vote, but why don't we do it that way, just be safer.
And then a no vote would be to send it, or would that be a motion after the fact? That's what I understand. So,
Well, if it fails, it automatically affects the planning commission because they need us to advance it.
okay, so basically, a majority no votes would send it back for that line suggestion of that single sentence removal. Okay.
This is Monte. Team next to him.
Are you talking to me?
Monte.
Person next to him. Yeah.
I say yes.
Mr. Melly? Yes.
No.
Supervisor? Yes. Clerk is yes. Mr. Steele?
Yes.
Mr. Schwan?
Yes.
Again, thank you to Gary and Manette, both here tonight, and those you represent who've worked on it. And Victor, please pass along to him. We appreciate his continued work. It's not the end of the process, but it's the next step.
I'd like to make a comment to that. I really enjoyed working with Victor. I mean, I think you guys need to hear. I think he does a really good job. I hear a lot of good comments from people that come in. I talked to 4 or 5 people that come in to do different print meetings and ask them questions, and they said Victor really goes above and beyond to make it work. He says, if he can make it work, or at least walk us through the process, they're very impressed with Victor. So I mean, I've heard it from at least 6 or 7 people. They call me. So they like him. And I appreciate too at the meetings, he's very, very serious, but he does the job. So I give him
encourage him to find his voice a little bit, right?
Yeah, he's kind of quiet, but
He's a full demeanor.
Okay, item 11A, the trick or treat. My motion,
Go ahead. I want you to know you've done a lot of important things tonight. But in the next 6 weeks, this decision you're making now is going to be way more important to a large segment of our population. It will affect a lot of phone calls. And so just so you're aware of it. You think I'm joking. We're getting a lot more phone calls about this than anything else we've done tonight.
Isn't that weird, but it's true? So, can I start by making a motion that we change it from trick or treat to Reformation Day, where it actually started out? There you go. I remove my motion.
All things say, whatever. So, I'd like to move that we recognize through our website and our Facebook page and just generally to the public that we recognize Saturday evening, October the 30th, 2021, as the night that we encourage the community to celebrate trick-or-treating. Obviously, if they want to do what they want to do, they're going to do as they please because we're for the people and for freedom. So, right? But I think it's good for those who want to take direction. There are those who tell me what to do. Yeah, there are, believe it or not, you know. Okay. All right, so that's my motion. Is there a second? Well, there's everybody. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed. Second public comment period, we've now we laughed at everybody. All up. Anything to say?
Georgetown Public School actually doesn't have school on that Friday.
Is it what now? 29th.
Is that a Friday?
October 29th.
Okay. Mini fall break or something.
We pulled it up because, Ryan and I pulled it up because my question was, does Denison have school on the 1st? Because we used to always take our end of October PD day as the day after Halloween so that teachers had to report what kids would sleep off their sugar buzz. But we didn't do that.
Teachers think of that.
Mr. Chairman, I have one more thing I'd like to bring up. So, I firmly believe that the lesser magistrate sometimes has to correct the more magistrate. And I would like a township supervisor to put together a resolution that as a township board, we disagree with the vaccine mandates that our president has put forth. I know the resolution has not a lot of bite, but on the other hand, it's unconstitutional what he's doing. We swore an oath to the Constitution, and I'm having a problem with that, big time. Because I don't believe that can be enforced by our president. And I look at it as I did it with a lesser magistrate. But sometimes I think we need to take a stand that what's being done by hierarchy is wrong. So I'm making a motion that our township supervisor would make a resolution that we could agree on, that we can approve in 2 weeks at our next meeting.
Jerry, I'll support that.
I was going to say I support that, and maybe this would be a separate motion. I was hoping you were going to go down disagreement of the County Health Department with masking of elementary school. I think it should be a separate resolution, or I don't want to mix it.
I would really like to see the supervisor come up with a resolution that we could look at and start from there. Because, like I said, I don't think we have a lot of teeth in what we do, but on the other hand, I'm just struggling with I'm just hurting at the top down right now. I really am.
So you meaning to say supervisor or superintendent? So make sure it wasn't a slip of the tongue.
I'm thinking
asking.
Superintendent.
You say supervisor, let Jim do it. Let Jim do it, okay? Superintendent.
What you meant is what I'm asking.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
I should go with supervisor or the person would be willing to do it.
I'm willing to work on that in for consideration of the board. If that's the will of the board, then.
Superintendent? All right. Superintendent. If you want to do it, supervisor. If you want to, then.
Good for you. Supervisor. You'd be eloquent.
But I just struggle with the whole thing.
The board's going to vote on it, I suppose, if you guys direct me to do something. Sure. I do what I'm directed to do, but the board, just as any of you would be, and Dan didn't want to touch it, I can tell. So, we've got a motion and a second. Is there a vote on the motion then, and I'll do my best with it.
Vote on the motion.
Yeah, he's moved it and John seconded it, yes.
Yeah, so resolution.
Would the resolution include vaccination and masks? Or just
Two separate ones.
two separate? Okay.
Only the vaccines we're talking about right now.
I'm right now talking about the vaccine.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I do want to say, Supervisor, in collaboration with the superintendent, just in case you need something, does it matter?
No, fine, whatever you want to put it out.
You got it.
Excellent input from you guys. You guys are welcome to send me your thoughts.
You got it.
Yeah, sure can do. Yep, so, all right. Good. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed?
Me?
Okay. Anything else tonight?
Yeah, I would like to make a motion to have I'll take special like this time, the superintendent draft a resolution regarding mandatory masks in elementary schools.
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been motioned and seconded. Any comments or discussion about that?
I have mixed emotions. I question the effectiveness of masks. In my own heart, I wrestle with that one. The vaccine, I do not.
So it's not a mandate to force people to wear masks. It's a choice to wear masks, I guess. That's what I'm clarifying.
Can I interject some levity? Have we had some tonight?
Okay.
I heard the fact the analogy the other day, they said, you wear underwear, don't you?
Yeah.
You wear pants, right? Yeah. If you fart, do I smell it?
Came up at the county
They're both
commission
made
meeting.
of cloth, and so is the marijuana. Maybe it's been said elsewhere. It's the first time I heard it. I kind of laughed.
That was
But,
funny. Yeah.
so anyway, John, understanding misgivings. I understand also the fact that it really has no force or effect except to be Yep.
I teach elementary school and I see 700 students a week spread across 3 buildings. And I have a medically complex child at home. And so, any fever over 99 degrees sends us to the ER. And so I am not interested in any way being associated with something that is fighting against the Ottawa County Health Department because I think that the choice that they made is keeping people like me safe. My kid is 3, I can't vaccinate him if I want to. And having the 700 students that I see every week across 3 buildings be in masks because they are too young to be vaccinated is the only reason that I can work this school year. And I just couldn't put my child's health over my job if we were unmasked. And so that's why the Ottawa County Health Department protected teachers like me that were in impossible situations, balancing the needs of their home life with the realities of their work life. And so because a resolution would have no force effect, I don't care if you guys vote to move forward with it. But I want to have stated that I do not want to be connected with it in any way, shape, or form. And my preference would be if we write a resolution that it is signed individually by the board members that support it, rather than being signed by the board as a whole. And that would be my preference for the motion that just passed as well. That it's signed individually. The language can be we the people of the Georgetown Township board or whatever, that's fine with me. But I think that it should have individual signatures on it of people who are comfortable with it and not lump all of us together. So.
Fair enough. Yep.
I'd like to provide some context to why I second this a little bit here. And I completely respect where you're coming from, Becky. Where my second is coming from is really honoring the request of the majority of citizens in our township. And this is really backed by the best available facts that I've found. And I spent quite a bit of time in finding multiple sources for the best information and found 7 sources that I could find that supported that the majority of our constituents support mask choice, not necessarily no mask. And, I've looked at the commissioner meetings. I've actually watched all of the commissioner meetings, the school board meetings. there's a 70-30 majority. I've called board members, I've called on the commissioner level and on the board level. There's a 55-45 majority that want mass choice. And I've looked at 2 petitions of the county. First, the Ottawa Impact did a petition, but I asked them to pull out Georgetown Township. You know, that's 6,690 people signed that. And I asked them, please just tell me, what's Georgetown? And they did, and 2,000 of that 6,690, that's 30%, which is overrepresentation of really what our pie is in Ottawa County. And take what Georgetown constituents are of the total Ottawa County. So there was a significant overrepresentation even in that petition. So it's really a matter of a second to support the majority. It's not that it's a yes, make sure no one masks. It's actually the latter. It's mask if you feel comfortable masking, or unmask if you feel comfortable unmasking, just like how you do risk mitigation getting into a car to go to work. So everyone's in their own journey in this whole pandemic and comfortable with different things. I can't think of a more empathetic stance than the one of choice for those who want to mask and those who don't want to mask. That's why I second it. So any of that, if you'd like to, help you, Dan, and how you craft this.
Sure.
Happy to add, and I can supply some of my resources to here, the 7 sources that I've looked into.
Well said by both of you. I suspect that each of us has strong opinions as well that we could share, but I think we could go on about that issue. You've stated the opposing point of view very well. I want to call for a vote. Yeah.
Should have changed and would she like to draft it instead?
I think it's conflict of interest, isn't it?
She doesn't set up to send in what she wants to.
Okay.
Feedback. So any board member can submit feedback, get suggestions to the superintendent.
I think we make it clear with Becky's statement there that only those who support either of these resolutions sign them.
Okay. Good with that?
Thank you for respecting that.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so all in favor of that last motion to send it to Dan the draft, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay. And with that, is there a motion to adjourn?
Support.